Shabbat Shalom, everybody. I hope everyone had a healthy and a relaxing week, and everyone is doing well. This week we're going to read Parshat Chukat and Parshat Balak, two parshiot that are rarely together, so it is somewhat unusual. But I want to take a minute to focus on Parshat Balak, on the story that is unique, according to the Talmud, in the Torah. Parshat Balak is a story that happens behind the scenes. It's one that the Jewish people don't necessarily know takes place. And yet the Torah records it. And there's a legitimate discussion to be had as to why the Torah includes this story. Had the Torah not stated any part of the story, had the Torah left it out, we would have not known that it happened and we would have been fine. And so it's worth considering as you're reading the Parsha this weekend, it's worth considering what does this story add to our understanding about the Jewish mission, about our purpose. Rabbi Sachs, the former chief rabbi of England, shares a story that in 2001 he was in Israel and he was having Shabbat lunch with dignitaries and different ambassadors, as one would imagine Rabbi Sachs does. Remember, in 2001, there was that famous conference, United Nations Conference on Racism, and it was a terribly depressing time to be a Jew. And Rabbi Sachs at this lunch expresses his feelings, that it's a very difficult time when Zionism is equated to racism on the international stage. It's a very hard time to be Jewish. And one of the dignitaries, one of the diplomats sitting at that meal with Rabbi Sachs, who I believe was even participating in the conference itself, said to Rabbi Sachs, "What do you expect? The Jewish people are a people that dwell alone. Heim am levadad yishkon. They're a people who dwell alone." Rabbi Sachs was stunned by this comment. He was floored by this statement. Because when you see who pronounces that statement, when you examine who's the one that introduces that idea to the world, that the Jewish people are a lonely people, it is indeed the wicked Bilam who pronounces these words. And so, while the diplomat was trying to say them to reassure Rabbi Sachs, to point out that there's nothing new under the sun, these words are actually fateful and troubling because they describe a loneliness that the Jew is destined to experience. Rabbi Sachs, in his classically masterful way, reworks the understanding of Hein Am Yishkon Levadad, that they are a people who need to live alone. Is it that we're destined to be by ourselves? Is it that we are destined to be lonely? To live in isolation? Rabbi Sachs suggests that there is a distinction between living alone and living apart. It's not that we're alone. It's not that we're by ourselves. We are very much engaged with the world. We are very much part of this world. But we are also apart so that we excel, so that we are enabled to bring our mission. Rabbi Sachs brings the example of the tennis player at Wimbledon, who is beloved and surrounded by thousands of fans, and yet he or she has to live alone, has to live apart to keep their mind focused and to enable them to thrive, enable them to do their best. We are challenged in that the world sometimes looks at us and says, "You're living alone." And we know that our mission is to live apart, to live excellent and exquisite lives. The concept of Chilul Hashem, of desecrating God's name, is one that reflects very specifically this concept. That the Jewish nation, us, we, are supposed to reflect, are supposed to be the representative of a higher purpose in this world. How we communicate, how we interact takes a level of deliberateness and thoughtfulness that does require us to live apart, to be distinct, to be deliberate. What's amazing is if you read Sefer Bamidbar up until now, that Jewish people have been deeply divided. Sefer Bamidbar is a book of argument. It's a book of sinat chinam. And yet, when Bilam stands at the top of that mountain and looks down upon the Jewish people, what does he see? Ma tovu oalecha Yaakov mishkanosecha Yisrael. He sees a united people. He sees one community. We know that not to be the case, but often it's the perspective of the outsider who has to help us understand how much we need each other, has to help us understand how important the Jewish mission and purpose is. Sometimes it's the outsider, the corrupt outsider even, who has to remind us that we must live apart. We must live a life of purpose, a life of mission, a life of godliness. Ma tovu oalecha Yaakov mishkanosecha Yisrael. Bilam looks down upon the homes of the Jewish people and says, how beautiful are they? How magnificent are they? How unique are they? The time we find ourselves in is so focused on our homes, on the Jewish home. I understand how shul makes us apart. I understand how shul makes us distinct. It's a very different kind of ceremony, service. It's a practice that makes us separate. But the challenge is, as we look at our homes, how do we make our homes apart? We do feel the loneliness. In Am Levadat Yishkon is something that applies to everyone these days because of the isolation we're trying to enforce. But it's deeper than that. How do we communicate that we are apart, that we have a distinct mission to bring God into this world, to bring this world to a higher spiritual plane? The story before we are introduced to Avraham, the story recorded in the Torah is the Tower of Babel, which is a story of a nation that is uniform in its perspective and uniform in its language. And Avraham witnesses the crumbling of the Tower of Babel, the diversification of the people of the world, and he understands that a world that has one identity is not a world of strength. It's not a world of balance. A world that has a people that live apart, that bring a different mission, that talk a different language, that behave a different way, is the Abrahamic mission. It's the sense of purpose that we live. Wishing everybody a Shabbat Shalom. Enjoy your families. Enjoy your home over Shabbat. If you're coming to shul, if you are comfortable in doing that, know that we're thrilled and honored that you're coming to our shul. And if you're not yet ready, for legitimate reasons, to come, know that we miss you deeply and that we look forward, please God, to a time in the near future where we can dwell apart together. Shabbat Shalom.